Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Andrew McLeod. I'm actually taking over for Steve because I'm more of an expert than he is, but that's not true. That was supposed to be a joke. Only the people on my team are laughing. So today I'm going to introduce you guys to a legend, a guy that I know both from as a business person and also as a friend personally. Steve Cadigan has worked for companies like Cisco and EA. He was the former head of talent for LinkedIn, based in California, and he is incredible. Today, he's here to talk about HR in this new transparent world, and it's going to be a really exciting talk, so it's my pleasure to introduce you all to Steve Cadigan. Come on up, Steve.
Did we figure out the population of Germany yet? It's really bugging me. It's really bugging me. Well, listen, Steve Cadigan, it's great to be here today. And I've just got a few slides for you. I apologize if I have too few PowerPoints. That can be okay for you? A few slides? Okay. But I've had the privilege for the last 20 years or so to be working in the high-tech sector, watching companies go through lots of changes. And one of the things that I study a lot is leadership and behavior in organizations. And so what I wanted to share with you today is some of the insights that I've seen and observed that are really both challenging and exciting and presenting opportunities for all of you as leaders as we head in this increasingly transparent universe. The world is getting, as you know and as you've heard all day today, the world is getting more and more open. And that can be both challenging, but it can also provide huge opportunities. And those are some of the ones that I want to share with you today. So I don't know about you, but even though I'm from Silicon Valley, I got to make some confessions to you. About 5 years ago, I was interviewing for a job as the head of talent at LinkedIn, and they were around 400 people. And as part of my interview process, and it was like speed dating, I met everyone on the executive team in a day and a half. There was 9 interviews, and I met the CFO, the CEO, the chairman, head of sales, head of marketing, and so forth. And I thought, you know what? I am going to show these guys I am so hip with social media. I'm going to send them a LinkedIn invitation to join my network, and I'm just going to blow them away with how cool I am and how hip I am with all these tools. So I did. And you know what? They all accepted my invitation, which was really exciting for me. Wow, they must think this thing's going to work out. I got their acceptances. But something happened that night that I really wasn't planning on. Do you know what happens when you accept a LinkedIn invitation? Your whole network finds out the next day. And I was working at that time as a vice president of human resources at a video game company called Electronic Arts. And it just so happened that my whole network, including my boss, saw the next day that Steve's now connected to the CEO, the head of the chairman of the board, the head of sales, all LinkedIn. And so the next morning, I'm not kidding, this is a true story, my phone goes off. Hello? It's Gabrielle, my boss. Yes? I know you're interviewing at LinkedIn. She said, I'm like, oh man, if I don't get this job, I am so screwed. But it was a wake-up call for me. And I don't know if you've had those wake-up calls, either with LinkedIn or another tool, that I am completely ill-equipped to play this game. I wanted to show off how I knew how to use the social tools, but I did know that there's actually a switch in the settings button that disables the broadcast of all new connections. Oops, I found it the hard way. Lucky for me, it worked. But we're in this era, I don't even need to tell you because everyone's been bombarding you with all this stuff all day long. I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know about you with all these new things that are out there. I can't keep up. I graduated college, never touched a computer. In fact, I purposely avoided the typing class because I don't want a career where you have to type. That's for the administrators, right? I'm not doing that. Oops. Right? I didn't see it coming, and I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know about you, but some days I get calls from friends, hey, did you see my posting? Did you see that YouTube I listed? Have you tweeted? I go, I haven't talked to my mom in 3 weeks. What do I want to be on Twitter for? What the heck? What is the leverage? And it's so confusing. Where should I spend my time? I mean, I was watching Randy's presentation going, oh my gosh, I don't know about half the things she's talking about. I'm starting to get stressed out. And I think we're dealing with this kind of social media fatigue out there. So the first thing I just want to do with you is say, I got to confess, I'm not hip and I'm not cool with all these tools. But I think I've got some suggestions for how we can rethink this and how we can take advantage of those as leaders, because there's some stuff going on that you all and we all need to be ready to face to be more effective as leaders, or even as an individual professional. or your company can take advantage of some stuff. Because I happen to learn a few things, and I'm watching now, as I'm spending time in some really interesting organizations, of different ways people are behaving to really take advantage of this new proliferation of transparency. People know stuff now about you, and you know stuff about people more than ever before. I think it's a fundamental truth. Companies know more about their candidates and employees than ever before, and employees know more about companies than ever before. So let me give you a few examples of just how we're facing this new reality. But first, let's just face it. We can't digest the pace of all this technological change. We just can't. It's outpacing our ability to absorb it and apply it. Has everyone heard that joke about the bear chasing the two people in the woods? And one guy says, "Holy crap, we gotta outrun that bear." And the other guy says, "No, I just gotta outrun you." And that's kind of how I look at social media right now. It's like, I don't need to be a ninja here. I just gotta be better than the next guy or my competitor, or have some way of leveraging tools that's going to give me an advantage compared to the people I'm competing with. I don't need to, and I don't have the time to spend on all these tools. So, the first thing I want to do is have you park some of your frustrations and stress and figure out, okay, what is the new world and how am I playing with it and how can I take advantage of it? And so I'm going to give you a couple of stories. How many of you followed what happened at Mozilla about 3 weeks ago? Anyone here captured that whole flow? This is a fascinating case study. Here's what happened. About 4 weeks ago, it hit the newswire, 2 board members of Mozilla resigned. Mozilla is an open source community search engine with a very small employee base, but a lot of their products are built by people who are just doing it out of voluntary goodwill that they want to contribute. 2 members of their board of directors resigned, and then a new CEO was announced the following day, and then the day after that it came out that the CEO had funded an anti-gay marriage campaign, and the community was in an uproar, absolute fury, and it spread like wildfire. And 10 days later, guess who resigned? The new CEO. Now that would never have happened 4 or 5 years ago. Facebook didn't exist more than 10 years ago, neither did Twitter. Less than 20 years ago, there wasn't even a Google. Think about the power of the voice and the transparency. Here's someone made a $10,000 campaign contribution to a relatively, on a global scale, relatively obscure campaign to knock down a measure that had approved gay marriages in the state of California. And that drove the community berserk. They acted, and what happens? The CEO stepped down. Unbelievably powerful. Second example is a company you guys may have heard of, America Online, one of the first players in the internet space, okay? Anyone familiar with what the CEO did a few months back? Tim Armstrong, CEO, in the middle of a meeting with a team of leaders from a company that they just acquired. Tim was having a session where he's saying, guys, we are not hitting the numbers, I'm not sure about your level of commitment, and we need to make some changes, and I'm going to take all the responsibility. I don't think I gave you the right information, I don't think I gave you the right tools, and then all of a sudden, evidently, he observed someone in the back of the room taking a recording and actually doing a video of Tim. He goes, hey, Ezra, put that down, put down that phone, you're fired! Right in the middle of the meeting, and guess what, someone else was recording it, and guess what, they put it up on SoundCloud and YouTube the next hour. So now you've got the CEO of a major organization, global organization, recorded, and there's no context. You just have about 7 minutes of tape where he's leading this meeting and he fires someone. Anyone ever been in a meeting where someone actually got fired? Anyone get fired in a meeting? I've been in a meeting where stuff was thrown at me, but I've never seen someone fired in a meeting. And now, imagine if you're the head of PR, head of marketing, head of human resources at America Online, you're like, oh shit, this is not good. We've got our CEO recorded, and all our employees are going to see it, and it's all, we have no context. Tim's a good guy. He's done everything for this company. He's taken them, he's been far more supportive of them than he should have been. Or maybe that knucklehead who did that, he should have been fired a long time ago. We have no context. All the world hears is that soundbite. And you think it reflects well on Tim? It doesn't. Guess what? Can he control that blast to the whole internet of what he just did? No, he can't. That's a new reality. I'm going to give you this last one because this is a lot of fun. Tesla happens to be located very close to where I live in Menlo Park, California. And it's run by this brilliant guy, Elon Musk. And anyone follow what happened with when a reviewer in the Washington Post gave the Tesla a poor rating in the press? So here's Elon reading the Washington Post article one day about a really negative review about the new Model S. Car broke down, battery died, equipment wasn't working, and he went ballistic at this guy on Twitter and completely eviscerated the reporter. What the reporter didn't know was, guess what's in every Tesla? A black box. He said he broke down this exit. The black box said, no, you didn't. Because we got a black box and you weren't there. Didn't happen. You liar, liar. Guess what? The reporter had to retract the whole thing. But now we've got a CEO taking on a reporter in the public forum for everyone to see. And it's so powerful. The tone, the messaging, how he's handling himself is out there for all the employees and all the world to see how he's driving that. Super powerful. This is part of the new reality. Folks, everything you're doing or not doing is getting recorded, is getting out there in the world. And that is something that we can't necessarily control. But I'll tell you one thing. If you're not filling the social channels at least a little bit with some good things about you, someone's going to fill channels of information about you, your company, your organization, in ways that you don't control. Don't you want to have a say? Don't you want to have a voice? So here's one of the things that happened to me when I was at LinkedIn. They said, Steve, you're an HR guy, we're selling a recruiter product, will you join us? We've got to sell to some of these major organizations in the world. Companies like Walmart, JP Morgan. I go in there and I meet the head of recruiting, and the head of recruiting would say, no. We get your technology, we get LinkedIn, we want to buy it. But my leadership's afraid of the internet. I actually had one company in the pharmaceutical industry, the head of recruiting said, the head of recruiting said, I was pitching my CEO of a global multi-billion-dollar company, and the CEO said, hang on a second, hey, is social media, is that bigger than the internet? And she's like, oh boy, I don't think I'm going to get this purchase order signed. But here's the thing that's really interesting is that there's a fear out there. And so I think when we talk about social media, I don't know about you, but my stomach starts to turn. I start feeling like overwhelmed. I don't have time for it. It's not for me. It's too polluted. It's crowded. It's noisy. It's confusing. Okay? But how about this? If I said to you, you know what? There's people out there that are talking about what it's like working for you. There's people that are talking about the interview experience that they had in your organization. There's people that are talking about things you said and did. Would you want to know what that is? Yes. Well, that's what social media is. Don't look at it as the social media blob that you have no influence over or there's no relevance for you. Look at it as streams of intelligence that you want to mine for your leverage. And if you can see it differently like that, then go find some people. If you're not hip with it, go hire some people who are. Because you need to know. And there are dozens of organizations right now that are putting dashboards together that allow you to get insights from whatever the subjects are that are important to you. How many of you as leaders have a Google News flash that has your name in it? Anytime you're in the news, you get an article. Or a social media blast. Anytime your company's name's up, you get a hit. You need to know that. You want your ear to the ground. Because if you're not filling the channels with stuff that's good about you, someone else is doing it. And so that paints a really, really interesting challenge. But wait, I think this whole subject of the reality of social media and transparency is creating an opportunity for you. And this concept, I think, is really, really critical. And I encourage all of you to really grok this as you spend more time around the subject and how you want to play in it. And that's the concept of personal branding. I would argue that an organization's brand is the collective brand of all the leaders and everything that's getting tweeted or Facebook status and updated about them that's out there on social media. I mean, you are increasingly, as an organization, becoming the collective brand of the presence of your leaders in your company in all these social places. That's totally new. Now, how you pay attention to your brand is not through some big ad campaign, it's through something more real. And so think about that. Are you investing in your own brand? Are you even listening? You need to have a voice in this game, folks, because it's only going to grow. Let me give you a fun story a friend of mine told me a few weeks ago. A friend of mine was interviewing with this big private equity firm outside of New York. And in the course of preparing for the interview, he does what hopefully all of you do if you're preparing for an interview. He looked at everything he could get his hands on. One of his favorite sites is a company called Glassdoor. And Glassdoor is actually a repository of a ton of information around employees, around what it's like to work there. What do they think of the CEO? What do they think of the culture? What do they think of the compensation? I'm not sure to what extent I've tested the Glassdoor penetration in Canada. It doesn't seem to be as rich as it is in the States. But in Silicon Valley, it's oftentimes one of the first places you go if you're considering making a move to another company. And I don't know what gives Glassdoor the right to be able to play such power in the space, but they have thousands and thousands of people going there every day. So my friend went into the interview, and it went something like this. It was the CEO of this private equity firm. He was in the final rounds. And I almost wonder in retrospect if my friend was just having some fun with this or whether he was really seriously interviewing for the job. So it went something like this. The CEO said, so, and he started off, do you have any questions for me? And my friend said, yeah. Should I be worried that on Glassdoor you have one of the lowest CEO ratings in the entire industry? Should I be concerned that the turnover of your executive team is 80% in the last year and a half? Should I be concerned that people think that you're underpaying them and overworking them? Should I be concerned that you've been selling shares in your company at a much more active clip than any executive in a comparable space? Should I be concerned about that? You know, can you just imagine the vein of like popping out that guy's neck right there? And he was against the wall. Now, not all this information is new, but it's so easily accessible now, and the power is now in the hands of the interviewer. And that CEO was not ready for this. And that's how it's playing out. We have so much more information in which to make great decisions. So part of me says, hey, you know what? We're headed towards an economy where job satisfaction should go up. Why? Because I know more about where I'm going than I ever did before. And the company knows more about me than they ever did before. So we should have a much tighter harmony of job satisfaction. But all the data right now suggests more people are miserable in their jobs than ever before. So hopefully with the leverage of more intelligence, we can make some better decisions. So, you know, before I freak you out too much, and it's lunchtime, usually I'm right before the bar section, so I usually really depress people so they can take care of it right afterwards. But you've got a couple of choices here. You can go fetal like I did when I got that phone call from my boss, like, you're interviewing. I was like, oh no. And by the way, the rest of that story, when I was at that company, my wife worked there too, and my kids were in the on-site childcare. So I just threw a grenade in the room, and it was about to explode right on. So you can take advantage of it, or you can choose to just go fetal. And you can say, well, I'm just going to wait for this whole thing to pass. How I've been doing it's been working for me just fine all the time. And that may be a slow death spiral strategy that makes you real happy at the end of the day. But you don't have to be a ninja with all these tools. Just pick a couple. I'll make a confession to you. Do you know how long it took me to do my first tweet? A year. And here's how it happened. We're sitting around as an executive team at LinkedIn going, and we were just starting to, this was the early days, we had no idea we were going to be successful. We're sitting around and we're saying, you know what, we're executives in a social media company. We should all have some kind of Twitter presence out there. Anyone got a Twitter handle? And most of us were like, how's the tweet you? It's like, nope. Well, we need to show people we know what we're doing here. And I'm thinking to myself, if those guys only knew how I screwed up LinkedIn before I even got this job over there. And I said, so, okay, homework assignment, all executive team. I need to see some tweets from you. I'm like, okay. So I went home, I was like, I'm ready, I'm gonna do this. I picked my cool Twitter handle, Cadigan. Boring. And I was like, okay, so I started to write my first, couple lines. I was like, being witty in 140 characters, not easy. So I erased it, no, that's stupid. And I started another one, I was like, you know what, that is gonna make me look really dumb. And after a while, I just put it down. I was like, this is ridiculous. I can't make sense of this. Every time I try to do something, I'm putting so much pressure on myself. And so I actually said, I don't think this is for me. This is not for me. It's for the younger people. And then finally, I started watching more tweets, and I found a few people whose tweets I loved. And what they were doing is they weren't talking about something insightful. They were asking a question, which I thought was really interesting. Like, should I really be letting my kids play on the iPad for 3 hours a night? And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I'll start asking a question. And I didn't think much of it as I started to find my voice and get comfortable with it, and I'm not a prolific tweeter. But as I started to find my voice, I started to interview candidates who said, hey, I saw your tweet on one of those things that LinkedIn's doing in the community. I thought that was awesome. The scholarship you gave to that charity organization, that's really, really cool. I didn't know that. I was like, wow, people are listening. I didn't think that they were. Let me give you some what I think are really cool examples of what is possible and why I think it's valuable to spend time listening. And pick your spots. We were building a product at LinkedIn a few years ago called LinkedIn Signal. And LinkedIn Signal was really just what I'm talking about. It was a product that was going to allow us to monitor all the traffic that people talking about LinkedIn were saying, and we were going to be able to aggregate it and sort it and cluster it around, are these comments about this product or a certain geographic bit of feedback for us. And there was a guy who was a top engineer at Google in New York City who was writing about it on his blog called The Noisy Channel. And he was making some really cool suggestions about our product. We thought, wow, that's really interesting. So we developed a dialogue. In fact, we dispatched my head of recruiting, Brandon Brown, to start having a discussion with this guy. So we reached out to him and said, hey, tell us more. We love your ideas. Hey, would you like to come and have a coffee with us? And we'll fly you out to the Bay Area. And we did. And as that relationship grew, Daniel now is the head of data science at LinkedIn. All through listening. That's where it started. We're building a product, guys talking about it. We found him, we engaged, boom. That guy's life is fundamentally different. The company, data scientists are like the rarest of animals that you could possibly find. Trying to find a search relevancy engineer or a data scientist in Silicon Valley, good luck. Here's a guy that found us. And we would have never found him. And the impact to the company wouldn't have been as great if we hadn't been listening like that. Here's another one of my favorite stories. It does cross over a little bit in the spooky camp for those of you that definitely have got your fears about the internet. There's a company called Salesforce. I'm sure many of you have heard of it. It's just up the street from me in Silicon Valley. And they bought a company called Radian6. And Radian6, similar to the LinkedIn Signal product, is a technology that monitors and evaluates all the social noise out there and helps you make sense of it. Well, one of the teams that was really prolific at using Radian6 was the recruiting team. And one of the things that they saw was a tweet from a woman saying, so excited to be here at President's Club in Hawaii with my husband. Somehow that recruiter saw the last name of this woman. You know what President's Club means if you're a sales rep? It means you're the best. And you're going to Hawaii as a reward, if you will. So here's a President's Club, the spouse of an employee on President's Club. They cross-referenced her last name and found out that her husband was actually a sales rep at a company that they wanted to hire from. So 2 airline tickets and a flight to Hawaii later, guess who's sitting at the bar of that hotel? 2 recruiters from Salesforce. 2 months later, 2 hires from that company, from that bar, from Radian6. Spooky awesome, right? That's powerful. They were listening, they did some work, and they found and unlocked some unbelievable talent. That's what's possible right now, and the opportunities are even more exciting. So a couple last things in closing here, and then I'll take any questions that you guys have, or even I'd love to hear some of your ideas about where all this stuff is going, is that there is so much information getting collected right now that I'm super excited about the future of what I call predictive analytics. We have so many insights to be able to make better decisions about our organizations and the people in them. As a head of human resources, one of the theories I've had for years is that when you have an employee who gives birth to their first child, they often wind up leaving your company within a year because it's a massive life change, but I could never substantiate that. So we took the data from our turnover statistics at LinkedIn and mapped that to people who had their first child and actually found that there was a higher proportion of people leaving who had a first child. And that was incredibly helpful to us to inform, well, maybe we need to do some coaching for people here. Maybe we need to do some, yes? Good? Okay. Did I just go out? Yeah. It sounded good to me. All right. All right, is that better? No? Yes? No. Am I off back there? There we go. There we go. Okay. Now we get a mic and a flipper in this. Okay. All right. So what I was trying to tell you is a story of like now I've got actual real data that I'm taking a look at that's informing me to make better decisions about my employees that I never had access to before. What if LinkedIn, for example, asked you when you're filling out your profile, what if they asked you to put down who you work for in whatever job you have? All you need to do is flip on that switch. And so now you've got a whole graph of who worked for who, and you can see patterns such as, well, gee, everyone who worked for Patrick, their career has gone up 3x after they worked for him. Or conversely, everyone who worked for Jim left after 6 months of working for Jim. What's up with that? We have all that data, but we've never taken a look at it in a predictive capability. That's coming. There are more companies looking at human data right now that are getting funding from the venture capital than ever before. So that's super exciting. There's a couple that I wanted to tell you about that I'm spending a lot of time with. One of them up here is Guild. Guild, if you haven't heard from it, is going after helping organizations find technical talent. And what they're able to do is go in the open sourcing coding communities, like a GitHub, where engineers actually post their code, and they're actually able to measure the density of the code to see whose code is better than other people's codes by how rich the coding was compared to someone who coded similar outcomes but with much more code, who's borrowing whose code by measure of popularity, and now they've got a ranking of every engineer in every programming language. Think about the implications of that just for a second. If I'm a recruiter, now I know who's a better programmer than someone else by virtue of actually comparative programming sets of data that's out there. And if you're an engineer, you're probably pretty active out there. Now, it's not completely foolproof, but now let's go a little step further. Imagine you're an engineer and you know what your ranking is. Do you think when salary review comes time for salary review, you've got a little bit of leverage? Yeah, I saw that I'm the #3 Python developer in the world. And at 65 grand a year and that 0.0% bonus I've been getting, yeah, a little bit like, that's super powerful how it's going to change the dynamics of employment relationships and give you insights. Another company, Data Cycles, is building a text analysis system so that when you do your employee surveys, and I've done more than I can count, you're not influenced by reading the employee comments based on how many glasses of wine you had. Now you can actually find trends by how the text analysis is parsing the data so that you've got real insights that you can act on. Why are you asking for feedback from people unless you want to act on it? So I think in closing here, the future actually is really bright. I'm going to give the future a thumbs up. And the world is open. The question you all got to ask yourselves is, are you open? Thank you very much. Cold? We have some Q&A time, or should we just head to the rip into the food? Okay. Any questions? Anyone? Comments? Anecdotes? Thoughts? Yes.
You're talking about an entire department of companies to do your search rankings, your search relevance. I'm fortunate to have one full-time IT guy. So how does a company that doesn't have a budget, how do we incorporate all this and make our website what you guys usually invoice?
Yeah, so everyone hear the question. So that may sound great when you've got resources and money, but in the real world it's just me and my IT guys. And how do I take advantage of that? Does anyone actually have a story where they're on a shoestring budget and they're actually monitoring social traffic that they can give an example of what they're doing that they want to share? Well, there are sites that give you dashboards like Hootsuite, for example, that you can actually put together. In some cases, it's free. It doesn't take a super technical genius to load that in there, and you can link all the accounts that you have or that you want to have, put the keywords, and start monitoring the traffic for you. Or there's very small subscription rates that you can pay for organizations like that. But if you see me after, I can give you the name of a couple other ones. Other questions on this one? Okay, that's a wrap. Thanks very much, everybody.